Hello and welcome back to ParticularPixels. I'm Xiaoling and this is X-Morph Defense. So X-Morph Defense is a mixture between a tower defense game and a twin-stick shooter. Story-wise, there really isn't too much to talk about here. You're playing as the aliens invading the Earth, trying to capture its resources, and you have to defend your core against the retaliation from the human forces. There are 14 levels in the game. Each level is a country essentially that you'll have to play through with increasing difficulty, and each one presents you with new challenges and new enemy units that you are going to have to contend with, which forces you to change your strategy. Some of the levels have an end boss battle as well. The gameplay loop though remains identical for pretty much all of them. The core drops to the earth, there's a little bit of exposition about what's going on, which you can thankfully fast forward by holding the shift button, and then you start the waves and you have to stop all the human forces from destroying the core. Each level is broken down into a number of different waves, and the core basically needs to survive until you've completed the final wave / boss battle, if there is a boss on that particular stage, in order for you to be successful and move to the next country. Now, if you've played any tower defense games before, you'll be in pretty familiar territory here. Before each wave starts, it'll show you what enemies are going to be coming from that particular wave, as well as the route that the wave is going to be taking through the stage. So you can plan where you're going to put your towers, and on top of that, you can actually put a force wall between two towers that are within a certain range of each other, blocking the route and forcing the enemies to take a different route through the city. And this adds a little bit of strategy to each map as well. Later on, this becomes pretty important as well, since you want the waves to take the longest route possible before arriving at your core, and thus giving you time to deal with these particular waves. When you reach the end of each stage, you'll get a number of upgrade points as well as technology points, which you can use to unlock new techs for both your turrets and your ship, and you can upgrade your core. The turret upgrades unlock new types of turrets, so flame turrets, which are good at dealing with small units, artillery turrets, which bombard from a distance, laser turrets, which deal with the stronger units in the game, and anti-air turrets, which of course are self-explanatory. All of them have pros and cons and are more or less effective at dealing with the various types of units in the game. The ship upgrades allow you to unlock different weapons for your ship, as well as secondary abilities for some of the weapons. For example, you start off with a plasma weapon, which can then be upgraded to fire a plasma charge, which can be charged up and does a whole bunch of damage, and can be further upgraded to provide you with a shield while you are charging the weapon. And then there are missiles and lasers and bombs as well, again all with secondary upgrades. And finally, there are upgrades to your core as well, which will improve its shields or allow it to defend itself to a small degree by either shooting individual units or releasing a big explosion when it starts getting attacked and there are units around it. X-Morph has a good balance of tower defense and shooter mechanics in my opinion. Relying only on your ship and its weapon upgrades and your awesome twin-stick shooter abilities is not going to be enough to succeed. You will need to rely on your towers as well, and vice versa. In order to succeed, you have to use absolutely everything at your disposal, especially later on in the game. So as you would expect, the difficulty of the game ramps up as you progress further and further into game, with the earlier waves with kind of simple ground vehicles and some mild air support, but you'll eventually be dealing with waves of powerful bombers, assault craft, as well as large tanks on the ground, anti-air units driving on the ground, artillery that's going to start bombing your turrets, and healing vehicles that will heal the units in each of its waves unless they're destroyed. So the game mixes things up and keeps things interesting, and with every successive level introduces new types of challenges for you, which I think is nice. So as you destroy enemies, you collect scrap in the game, you refill your building bar that essentially allows you to build more turrets or upgrade your current turrets on the map to new types of turrets in the middle of battles. Turrets can be moved as well with no cost, which is nice since the pathing often changes between the different waves, so you'll definitely need to reposition your turrets for better positioning as you deal with successive waves in each of the levels in the game. By pressing shift on the keyboard or mouse Y on the controller, you'll enter ghost mode. In ghost mode, you are invisible, so the enemies won't be shooting at you, but you are also unable to shoot yourself. And it's basically in this mode that you'll be doing all your building, upgrading, moving turrets or selling turrets or connecting turrets in order to create force walls between them to change the routes of the enemies. I use the keyboard and mouse to play the game since I found that to be the most comfortable. Of course, controllers work as well, but I found that placing of turrets far more cumbersome with the controller than with the mouse. Pressing Y changes you into build/ghost mode, as I said, at which point you have a reticle on the ground where you can place the turrets. Unfortunately though, with a controller it remains a set distance away from your ship. You are going to essentially have to move your ship around until the reticule is exactly where you want it. Whereas with the keyboard and mouse you can just move it as if you're moving a cursor around a screen and place it anywhere within the range of your ship, which is honestly, in my opinion, much more convenient. The campaign can be played in co-op as well. Unfortunately, only local co-op split screen is supported. This was a little bit disappointing since I think that the game would have been an absolute blast to be able to play with a friend online. It's nice that the co-op feature was there though, but as you would expect with split screen co-op, the view area was severely limited and made for a much more cramped experience compared to the wide open full screen in single player. The game also has some replayability since you can go back and play the levels that you've done before, but with the additional upgrades you've acquired from finishing the later stages in the game, there are also 3 difficulty levels depending on your skill level, and I believe there's going to be a level editor in the game as well, since I see there's a tab to download player created content. I read that it was downloadable, but the developer said it was a work in progress, so it's very likely to be buggy and have all kinds of other issues and stuff. But once that's done, I'm sure that'll add some replayability to the game as well, for those of you who are wanting to mess around with creating your levels or just messing around with the amazing physics that are in the game. There is a great deal of physics in the game and it's pretty impressive. The game displays an impressive amount of destruction actually. Every building can be destroyed, explosions rock trees, aircraft crash into buildings leaving damage, and so on and so forth. This is from the official trailer just demonstrating the physics in the game. It looks pretty good visually and it's pretty rewarding to see things explode. And to my surprise, the frame rate remained extremely smooth, and despite how much was going on the screen in some of the later levels, the frame rate stayed over 100, even in the largest battles that I saw, which is definitely pretty impressive. I expected in a game like this, because in many other games like this, the frame rate tanks when there's a lot of stuff going on. So I think that's pretty much everything I have to say about X-Morph. I think that if you enjoy tower defense games, getting this is a no-brainer. It should definitely be in your library. If you enjoy twin-stick shooters with a twist, this is probably something to look into getting as well. X-Morph is very enjoyable and I would recommend it without hesitation. But I think that about wraps up this video. If you guys have any questions or comments, as usual, you can leave them in the section below. If you enjoyed the content, you want to see more like it, don't forget to subscribe. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like or a dislike if you didn't enjoy it. I've been Xiaoling, and I'll see you next time.